are live on Zoom. I see people coming into the room. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. This is a JB show number 114. Thanks again for being here. I have a special guest today. I think you guys can enjoy, especially you Amazon sellers. But before we do that, let's get to our sponsor. The sponsor of the show is My Fulfillment Team. My Fulfillment Team is a state-of-the-art inventory processing. You source, we process, you profit. They'll receive, store, prep, pack, ship, Amazon Plus. What this means is anything that you have, they label, bundle, bagging, bubbling, you name it, they can do it. They do everything for you. It's a one-stop thing. It's a specialized prep company you can trust, family-owned and operated for 9+ years now. Millions of items processed. Never touch your inventory again. Automate your process. Pay for only the services you need. Again, you can check them out at www.myfulfillmentteam.com. Hey guys, my special guest today, if you are joining us, is Eli Engelberg. And Eli is going to be talking us today about an Amazon repricer. There's a lot of them out there, but I'm really excited to bring Eli in today because Eli's repricing. He has a lot of great reviews. A lot of people are using his product and love it. I hope you guys enjoy the information that he shares with you. We all know that we need that upper advantage, and the upper advantage we need with Amazon. So this is one thing. You have to have tools in your toolbox. I talk about it all the time. Well, he's going to be talking about why it's important to have a repricer. Before we do that, though, I'm going to introduce him, do a little bio on him. Eli, before founding Seller Snap, Eli held different positions in e-commerce related tech companies. Eli is instrumental in leading the company. Eli holds a BA in economics, LLB in law, and is a corporate lawyer and member of the IB. He's a corporate lawyer, guys. Some of the things that you guys are going to have takeaways today are, as important as the buy box is, don't try to own it 100% of the time. There's something you don't hear all the time. Use a repricer. Even Amazon's own free solution is better than not using anything. And if you're selling over 50K a month, it's worth spending some extra money on an advanced repricer solution because even a small improvement here and there can translate into thousands of dollars into profit. Hey, Eli, for my folks that don't know you and my listeners, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you did in the past, and what got you started in wanting to build a repricer for Amazon sellers?
Well, first of all, hi John. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a great opportunity. First of all, Seller Snap is not me. It's Joshua Beam and Yuval Kaufman and myself who started this a little over 3 years ago. All of us from different angles were in the realm of e-commerce and specifically Amazon. And knowing the challenges of sellers and knowing the challenges of sellers and the room for improvement, and anyone who's selling on Amazon knows how many tools there are, and there's always something missing. So that got us starting on thinking about a better solution for a repricing software. And when I say repricing, we'll touch that probably. We'll touch about that a little bit further down the show. But it's meant for sellers who sell products that compete for the buy box. So not so much private label products, white label, where owning the buy box is not an issue. That's a different challenge. We can touch that if we have time. But we're talking about sellers that resell branded products. So that's what drove us to this. And about 3 years ago, that's where we came up with this concept of applying game theory tactics to repricing. That's kind of what drove us and inspired us to solve the problem. And we've been building and developing our tools ever since.
Awesome. Hey guys, can you type a 1 in the chat on the side if you guys can hear Eli okay? I want to make sure that you're hearing all this great information that he's going to be giving you today. All right, they're still coming in the room too, I can see. Okay, we got a 41, so that must be a better. All right, so they I see that they can hear you, so we're good to go. So I'm gonna remember got typo. Thanks, Laura. So guys, any questions you have, feel free to ask Eli about the questions. Repricing, like I said, it's a valuable asset to have to be able to compete on Amazon, is be able to sell your products. And a lot of times we're going to also talk about repricing where you don't have to reprice down. Sometimes repricing up helps too. I've seen it go up as well as down. All right, so I'm going to get started with some of the questions I have for him, and then you guys can jump in when you have them. So curious, what does game theory repricing mean?
Well, as a bit of background, I think for the past maybe 5-6 years, maybe more, you see repricing solutions become pretty much a standard for Amazon sellers, starting from very basic rule-based reprices into more advanced algorithms and AI. You hear these buzzwords getting thrown around a lot. And the idea is, and when we started to think about it, is we're trying to figure out how do you calculate the right price and everything. And it dawned on us that really the situation now, because so many sellers are using a repricer, is that it's for every action you make in changing the price, there's a reaction by other competitors. And that drove us to come up with this idea that really you're trying to automatically come up with strategies that will, instead of either losing money or driving price wars, come up with a more collaborative solution. And that's maybe a bit difficult to understand the way I tell it, but I'll give a simple example. If you're up against a competitor and they're using just a simple rule-based repricer, and they set it up to beat the lowest price by 5 cents, which is like common because that seller has in his mind, I need to be a bit cheaper, I'll win the buy box and I'll sell. If any price change you make, they'll react by putting it 5 cents lower and they'll win the buy box. If you try to beat them at their own game, there's a price war. It's very clear to see. Even if you're using a rule-based repricer and you're not being very greedy and you're just setting it to match the price, you match that competitor's price. He's going 5 cents below. You go 5 cents below. He goes 5 cents below you. Again, it can be a very, very quick battle where you're both just at your minimum price, still sharing the buy box, but you destroyed all your profit. And so once you understand, when you can detect that behavior in a competitor, obviously the better thing to do would be to increase the price, like you said, John. Increase the price. They'll follow you up, because they only, they go 5 cents below any price you're at. And that way, by applying this kind of strategy, you can go up and down in a higher range of prices, getting buy box share, but keeping that price or average price a lot higher or near the maximum you can sell for, instead of having this price war. Does that make sense? Is that a good explanation?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I don't think that most sellers know that when you're working the buy box, when you have a repricer, whether you have a repricer or not, the buy box is not, I think a lot of sellers think when they get the buy box, they have that buy box for a period of time. Sometimes it goes away real quickly. It switches quickly, but also like Eli could have the buy box where he's looking from the US market, and what he's seeing for the person in the buy box could be very different from what I'm seeing. And even like within 50 miles of me, it could be very different. So Amazon years ago, when you had the buy box, you had the buy box. Now you have the buy box almost regionally. So it could be 50 different people in the state of Tennessee that I'm in that have different buy boxes depending on where they're from. And I don't think a lot of sellers realize that. that the buy box is not something that just because you have it everywhere.
Yeah, you're very right, and that's by the way, a big pain point that that I can go into a little bit in depth. It becomes more of an issue now with what's been available for some time now, which is a seller-fulfilled prime, where you as a seller can get that prime badge, but the seller has control over where they offer prime fulfillment. So you can, as a seller, you can say, well, I'm offering prime in just a New York area, or any area, or almost the entire continental USA, and you still have control over it. And like you said, John, it really depends where you come in as a buyer, what offer you would see. So yes, that's a challenge that makes it very difficult. You can also the other side of that is that you cannot reprice regionally. So you only set one price. So you can't say, oh, I want one price in New York and another price in LA. But Amazon's algorithm will go and say, okay, you as a buyer, what buy box should we show you? Oh, sorry. So that's right. I don't think it's a good time. I can to go over. I think what really shows, in my opinion, a good explanation of why repricing is important. I have a pretty good slide. And let me try to share that.
Sure. While you're sharing that, I guess the other thing is with a repricer, when you have the buy box with the repricer and then you lose it, because you can lose it pretty quickly, does a repricer going through Amazon's API, does it have the ability to now in other regions still compete for the buy box in those regions, or does it just give you the buy box in that area and then kind of recycle it?
I'm sorry, I can't. It seems like I won't be able to share for some reason because it's saying Zoom will need to quit and reopen.
You can do that if you need to, and I'll just talk to them for a second if you want to try. And
let me see if that will work.
That would be the question that I would have is whether or not, while he's doing that and coming back, guys, if you guys have any questions so far on what we talked about as far as repricing, I think repricing is a critical part, and especially if you're doing retail arbitrage or online arbitrage or even wholesale. It just gives you, I won't say a competitive advantage, but it allows you to be in the game more if you're aware that the pricing is fluctuating the way it does, and you have a repricer that you can set, because most repricers now are better than they used to be, where if you set a low price in a bottom, it can only go to the bottom, or if you set a high price, it can go up, and it kind of they're pretty effective now on how they work. Years ago, you could actually set it to the bottom and it would continue to keep going even further down. All right, looks like Eli's back.
Hi.
Let's see if he can get his screen to share.
I'm back, and can you hear me? First of all,
fine.
Okay, so let me try to share because it's here we go. I think this will work. Let's see. So tell me if you're seeing this, and we'll.
I see that perfect.
Okay, so this is and I think this captures all the most important things we have to say about repricing. This is real data from Amazon, from Amazon notification. So this is Amazon push. For anyone who doesn't know, Amazon push notifications to sellers anytime there's a price change in the top 20 offers of an ASIN that you're selling, and that contains the prices and also who's winning the buy box. And what you can see here is very interesting behavior of three sellers. And in the first period that we're seeing here in blue, seller number C, the gray seller, is not using a repricer. He's at a fixed price. Okay. The blue seller, seller A, is also at this point not using a repricer, just sitting there around $16. And at that point, the orange seller, which is using, in this case, our repricer, is winning buy box and also going deliberately above seller C to give seller C a buy box share. Why? In order to share the buy box with that seller and not encourage that seller to drive the price down over time. because again, the assumption is if you have a competitor that is in stock, FBA, getting buy book share, even if they're not using a repricer, in a week they'll say, hey, I'm not selling this. They'll drop the price, by whatever amount they think to start selling again, and that's it. The price is now going to be lower and stay lower because this guy is not using a repricer. So that's seller C. Then at a certain point, the blue seller, seller A, turns on something, and you can see, first of all, it's a bad decision because he drops, instead of like remaining in the range where the other two sellers are, he drops dramatically in price. It's dramatic. What's dramatic? But he drops by 40 cents or more, and kind of levels out there. And then what you can see is the smart repricer, the orange seller snap in this case, the orange seller waits a little bit, but then he goes and starts competing with the blue seller here. And this is a case where the blue seller is aggressive. He's undercutting the competitor by a few cents every time. But what happens then is, after getting some buy book share, the AI pulls the price up, tries to get the blue seller to increase price, which they do to a certain extent. So you see this increase in price here. And so this kind of cycle goes on, where the smart repricer is able to pull that blue seller up to the highest that they will go. Again, the blue seller has, you can very clearly see, has set a max price that's somewhere below $15.40. And that's out of your hands as a competitor, because that's what the other guy is doing. But given the circumstances, this is not a bad outcome, because the average buy box price is obviously a lot lower than it was before the blue seller decided to come in and drop the price. But it could be a lot worse if you kept battling it out with that seller. You could go down as far as they'd both be willing to go. So what this shows us is, A, the importance of the repricer, just period, because the gray seller C, as long as we're sharing the Bible with him, that's fine. But now the third seller, the blue seller, came in, the gray seller, seller C, is not getting any buy books anymore. He's out of that picture because he's not using a repricer. He's sitting at a fixed price. So that's, he's out of the picture. And we also see the disadvantage of seller A's aggressive price drop. Again, because in the end, he's getting the same buy book share he would anyway. He's just getting it at a much lower price.
Yeah. I think what's interesting with this graph too is that what you're showing is that seller A decided that he was going to go down and maintain down there for a little while, but the orange seller, decided that I'm going to see if I can get him to bite and go up. And he did get him to go up a little bit, and then seller orange came back down to him, but then he went back up again to see, and they kind of played that little bit of a game to kind of finally find out where that blue seller was going to maintain his pricing at. So it kind of gives you an idea of where he's willing to go.
So exactly, I love the fact that you use the word game. This is exactly I didn't choose this by accident, but this is a very good example of how the game theory repricer works very well. Because as I said, the orange seller is managed by Seller Snap in this case, and what the repricer just automatically does is it detects that this is the pattern by which the blue seller is repricing. So it would be different if seller A would have a completely different strategy and would behave differently. The strategy the game theory repricer would come up with would be different. But for this guy, like we said, it's constantly reevaluating and pulling the price up. And as you said, and it's interesting, it's just interesting for me, dealing with this data all the time. It's interesting to see the decisions seller A, the blue seller, made, because he went down to a certain price. But then after going into a bit of a price war, when we pulled up the price, he didn't even go back to his original price where he started competing. So it's very clear that he has set a max price at some point, which is below $15.40. And that's as high as he'll go. And you see that, we retest it every several hours. And you see that he never goes back up to the price where he was. which again, thinking about it if you look at it from a cooperative point of view, it'd be much better for everyone, or at least if you keep the gray seller out of the picture, it will still be beneficial to be around the $15.18. But unfortunately, the blue seller is not, maybe not smart enough. I don't want to say that, but he's not willing to go up. He's blocking his increase in price by a maximum price that he's set.
Yeah. So now, Seller Snap, is Seller Snap the only one that you know of the repricers that actually detects and tries to drive the price back up again?
Seller Snap is the only repricer that I'm aware of that applies this kind of strategy or this way of thinking of game theory. No, we're not the only repricer. First of all, some rule-based repricers, I think we can, let me see.
So it seems like to me, when you have this kind of data, if you knew who that blue guy seller was up there, the dark blue, and you could see quite clearly that he's not willing to go up, but he has all that space to go up, that could be somebody you could reach out and say, hey, you guys, you're losing money because you don't have to go down that far.
Well, that's outside of the realm of what we're doing, and also, and this is, I want to be very clear about this. It will be unethical, and I think we'll all agree to just completely start coordinating prices. That's looking at it from a cartel kind of point of view. That's not what we're doing. We're just saying, okay, look at the strategy. How are these other competitors behaving? What can we do that's beneficial to us and to other sellers as well? And I think this in economy happens a lot, right? These big companies they don't sit in a dark room and make these decisions, but they signal they signal each other by making these little changes or little things, and other companies pick up on that, and a lot of times you see that when one big company does something, the rest follows.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that, I thought it was, I asked that question because I already knew your answer to it, is basically that you guys protect seller protection. So you're protecting him. You get this data, but you don't share it.
We don't share the data across sellers. Each seller has access, and by the way, we don't need us for that. As a seller, you have access to all the data as well. Obviously, these price changes that you get from Amazon. But it's also, like I said, it's not necessary, because just by analyzing the price changes, you can see what the other sellers are doing. You don't need to, kind of cross-reference that and do anything like that. It's just very obvious looking at that data this way, which
Right.
is difficult to.
Yeah. And it's a very good, clear. It looks like every 15 minutes to 30 minutes, your repricing is doing something.
It depends, but there's limitations on the frequency it does that. I think in this case, what you see here is not repricing decisions. It's not price calculations. It's whenever there's a price change takes place,
right?
Which is governed by a bunch of different parameters, and it's not. I don't think that interesting to go into right now. But I think the general picture is very clear from this.
Yeah. The interesting thing is for the people that are watching this or that will watch the replay is that you can see based on the timestamps that whether the price goes up or not, you can see how many times that data is changing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, and there's cases where it's even more dynamic than this. Although this is a pretty good example of very frequent price changes, and as you mentioned, this is look how many times the price changes in an hour, and as you said, every time this is a price change, there's a rotation in the buy box, someone else wins the buy box, and that's even without taking into account what you mentioned, which is the regional aspect of things. So
yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say is that this graph that you're showing is just one graph. There's hundreds of graphs throughout the country that are changing as well, and they're all different.
Yes, that's true to an extent, right? In the end, if you're the best offer generally, so there's no better offer anywhere, then you'll get the buy box, and you'll have the buy box in New York and in Los Angeles and in Kansas. That's not going to matter. I think the difference is when the landscape becomes a bit more complicated. So when there's other FBM sellers that may be very close to your price and offering prime at a certain location, and a bunch of other considerations that make it a lot more difficult.
Right. We're going to talk a little bit about that now. You touched on this a little bit earlier, but more and more sellers are taking advantage of Amazon Seller Fulfilled Prime. And how do you see this affecting the actual competition?
So the big problem with Self-Fulfilled Prime is that it's a challenge for automatic repricing, for third-party solutions, because you mentioned, yes, it depends where you're logging in from, or where you're shipping to, who you'll see, what offer you'll see in the buy box, but that data isn't available. Amazon don't make that data available via their API, and so and as I mentioned, you can't reprice differently on different regions. So your problem is, there's two problems. If you're offering self-fulfilled Prime, it's difficult for you. You can kind of gauge, okay, this is the price point you need to be in to get that buy box where you're offering Prime compared to other general offers. So let's say you're Prime and there's a good FBA offer for $20, and they'll get the buy box. You can figure out that if you offer the buy box, sometimes even for $20 or for $19.95, that's good enough to win as an FBM seller, good enough to get you the buy box where you offer Prime. And that's all okay. But then to set some sort of rule to automate that becomes a bit more complicated. And another thing that becomes very inaccurate for any third-party solution is getting accurate buy box share data. Again, for reasons that are a bit more technical. But it's very difficult for you to know, okay, how much buy box share am I actually getting if I have an offer that's Prime in certain regions.
Right. Next question. What are the challenges, velocity-based repricing, and how do you recognize items that are low velocity and don't respond to repricing?
So yeah, velocity-based repricing, it's another thing, and we have a lot of demand for this from sellers, and we've run so many different simulations and tests on this and POCs. The problem there is that velocity repricing, again, if you're trying to optimize for something that's selling 1,000 units a day, that's very manageable, that's doable, and you can probably get pretty good results. But what we see in a lot of cases from sellers is they say, well, this is not a fast-moving item, and I'm targeting a velocity of, I don't know, 1 a day or something like that. I want to sell 30 a month, and even worse than that, right? Sometimes it's even slower than that. And at that point, there is very little you can do in terms of price optimization, because you set a price. How long do you wait to see if it's effective, yes or no? And also, when the velocity is this low, it becomes very difficult to understand what the demand for that item looks like. And just to explain or give an example what I mean, you could be selling an item that the demand for that item is just like 1 a day. There's not enough people shopping for this. There'll be one person, on average, one person a day that'll come in and wants to buy this item. It's very possible that it doesn't really matter. The demand is not very elastic if we're going to economic terms a little bit. It doesn't matter that much if you sell it for $15 or for $20. The minute that one shopper that needs this item comes in, he'll buy it. He needs it, and he'll buy it for $15 or $20. And it's very difficult. if that is the situation, it's very difficult to kind of find that price, whereas the maximum that this seller would be willing to pay for it, and kind of get that velocity that you want. And we've seen this, you know, and this is even one a day is even a good case. Like we see, you know, some items are moving that slow that the demand is like 10 a month. Almost impossible to automatically find the right price for that. And I think that's the kind of place where I usually tell sellers, listen, this is where you come in, your intuition, just as a seller and as a business owner. What is the price that you need to sell this for? And just put it in that price, and that's it. You know, there's not a lot of room to play there, or it doesn't. I think it just doesn't. It doesn't necessarily show value to play with prices in those scenarios.
Next question, and this is a great question. Some sellers claim that having Amazon as a competitor on your listing destroys the listing since they can manipulate the buy box. What repricing strategy does Seller Snap use, and what do you see Amazon doing?
First of all, I don't think we need to share anymore. First of all, and this is again from looking at so many different competitors and different products, I can honestly say there is no one characteristic that defines Amazon as a competitor. We'll see Amazon behave as a seller in completely different ways on different products and at different times of year. And you'll see situations where Amazon are offering something but are just completely not competitive. They're more expensive than the other sellers. You'll see cases where they are very aggressive, and you'll see cases where they share the buy box with other sellers and really apply some game theory tactics themselves. You'll see Amazon kind of pull the price up or follow other sellers up in price. So that's one thing. So to say, well, if Amazon come in, it depends. In some instances, yes, you know that some sellers will say, well, the minute Amazon come into this product, it's just gone. They destroy it, and they'll be all over it, and you don't stand a chance. And I guess that's true, but it's not always the case. And so, is there a right strategy? No. If Amazon decide to be very aggressive, there's not much you can do. They'll dominate the buy box, and every now and then they'll maybe run out of stock, and you'll get your chance to sell a little bit, but there's not a lot you can do. But in these other cases where they're acting more like any other seller, you'd still be able to share the buy box and even bait the price up, and get good results. I think it's not a clear-cut answer.
Yeah, and I think personally that if Amazon is on the list and you stay within reason with your repricer and you're not repricing crazy way down, Amazon will share that with you. But if you decide to go to the race to the bottom, Amazon is going to go all the way down and hopefully put you to where you don't have any inventory left because you can't sell it because they went way under you. But I've also seen it where you go under Amazon and all of a sudden Amazon goes down under you, but then you raise your price up. And if you're the next lowest person to Amazon, they will raise their price back up to where you are. So I've seen Amazon go up as well with sellers.
100%. That's what I said. Amazon definitely will do that where it's more of a traditional, like any other seller behavior. They show you that they're willing to share the Bibles with you. They'll let you win the Bibles. They'll also, Amazon can respond to a price change within seconds, and even so, you'll still see that they'll let you sit in the buy box for an hour or so, not dramatically lower than them, or maybe beating their price by a couple of cents, and then they'll take the buy box back, and they'll definitely it varies. It depends.
That's the good old saying that we always say here is it's Amazon's sandlot. They just let you play in it.
It's true. But you can still make money, so who cares?
Exactly. What other options are there to reprice with Seller Snap? And we talked about this a little bit before we came on the air. Do you provide private label options?
So I think I mentioned, and this private label ties into the answer I had just now about velocity repricing. When you're selling something and the buy box is no longer a factor because you're the only buy box owner, it now becomes a question of what is the optimal price to sell the item for, and it has a clear answer in economics, but in the real world, in Amazon, it's a bit more difficult. Again, especially if your item isn't selling hundreds or thousands of units a day. So it becomes it's the same challenge. And again, private label, I think you'll probably be you're a bigger expert than I am on this for sure. There's different types. Private label is a bit of a general word. There's different types of that, and private label is we use this sometimes incorrectly. For us, what it means is where it's your own label, but also where it might be something that you don't have competition. You're the only one offering that specific ASIN, and it can be a bundle. A lot of sellers do that, right? They'll bundle something up together just to get out of the very competitive listing on Amazon into their own little niche. So regarding what we offer, and it works well. Again, for specific items, is the ability to tie your price into the price of comparable products. Which makes sense if I'm selling a garlic press. Private is the classic example, right? A garlic press. I want, besides spending money on advertising and making sure my listing is good, you still want to be competitive against other options that a buyer has to buy a garlic press. And you could do that by linking your price to other ASINs and looking at what sales rank they have and a bunch of other criteria. Another example is a bundle. So a pack of, if you're selling a pack of 3, a pack of 6, and you want to make sure that your price is, offers a little bit of a discount over a pack of 3 or a single. And in that sense, make sure that your price is automatically adjusted to remain competitive and attractive to buyers.
And guys, SellerSnap offers a 15-day free trial. I just put that in the chat for you guys over there. So if you want to check out the 15-day free trial, there's a website over there. I put in the chat. You can go to www.prosellertalk.com/SSNAP. SNAP. So it's www.prosellertalk.com/SNAP. All right, guys, any questions that you guys have for Eli here? He's going over a lot of stuff about repricers, when to use them, when not to use them. We talked about regional use with repricers. We talked about different strategies that Amazon uses. They'll go down, they'll go up. Let's see, we talked about what are the challenges of private label and can they be repriced. One of the things I thought about private label, and I don't know if the tool will actually do this with SellerSnap, is that I would think that if there was a way to where, like you said, if you're doing volume on Amazon with private label, and you just didn't want to go in and change prices on your own all the time, you wanted to find out if you could get that maximum price. In other words, you need to find out the lower tier, higher tier, and what is the happy medium where your product is going to sell at a high level, but also demand as much dollar as you can. So, is that something SellerSnap does or no?
We have the option to set a sales goal. So to set like, okay, what is the frequency at which you want to sell? And that will obviously work well if it's something if it's an item that moves fast. So then you could kind of gauge and say, okay, I'll try to increase prices at maybe small increments as long as I'm selling at a certain velocity. If I drop, then I'm gonna become a little bit more aggressive on my pricing. I'll drop price a little bit and kind of find that balance. So we have that, but as I said, being very open, this will work well for an item that is fast selling, not so much for something that is like, 30 items a month or something like that.
Right.
That wouldn't be very effective in necessarily finding the best price.
Yeah, so it would work like if something was selling like, 2,000-3,000 a month.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. I don't know if you want to talk about that here. We did put the free trial there, but what is the cost for someone to use Seller Snap? Is it like so many ASINs, have different packages? How does your packages work?
Well, normally we have two plans, a standard and a premium plan, which are $500 and $800 a month, a fixed cost, and there's no contract or long-term commitment there, which is also deliberate on our side, knowing sellers well, which is like, we know as a seller that your business can go up and down, and we see that it kind of makes us stay on our toes and make sure that we offer a good solution, because if it doesn't work for you at a certain time, you can just leave. You're not tied into anything that's very long term. In terms of packages, so the difference between 5 and 800 it is mostly in analytics, which is another topic which we are investing a lot into, and we know it's an important thing for sellers, is to really, besides repricing, seeing how well each product is performing.
Right.
But in terms of repricing, both plans are exactly the same in terms of the capabilities. Number of listings, standard is up to 15,000 and premium is up to 30,000. The reason for that is because of all the complicated calculation that goes into it in data processing. There's a pretty hefty cost in terms of infrastructure. We use Amazon's cloud, and still very strong computers, very strong database. And so that's why there's a bit of a difference here. We find that like the vast majority of sellers, in terms of number of listings, would fit into the standard plan and choose premium for added features of data processing, analytics, business intelligence, and such.
Now, is that the only fee, the standard in the premium, or is there also a fee that you guys get, like a percentage of, I don't know, 1%, 2%, whatever the percentage is?
No, we don't do anything like that. Again, it's bad practice. Sellers don't like it. You can understand why, and it's also not like, if you do well, if you have a store that does well, you built a business and you invest a lot. That's not our. It's not our business. It's not our, and it's not. We don't feel we have the right to put our hands in your pocket. We offer a service and we charge for it. And if it makes sense and there's ROI, then customers pay. And if not, then not. So no, it's a fixed. As I said, it's a fixed price. It's a fixed price, no contract.
Okay.
There's a bunch of solutions out there, right? It's like, I feel, like I said, we're not the cheapest. You can start pricing for free on Amazon, and there's some pretty good basic solutions out there. Channel Max has been around for ages, and people get good results with them. But there's a solution for everyone out there. It really depends what you need and what it makes sense to spend money on.
Yeah, and I've been out of touch for a while, so I don't know. There used to be repricers that actually got a percentage of what you took in. They got paid based on a percent, a certain percentage of how much volume you did. I don't know if there are any more like that anymore, but I know there used to be.
I'm not all repricer, not all software solutions actually share their pricing plans online, right? Some you have to contact them to get a quote. So I don't know if solutions still do that. Some are very directly linked to number of SKUs. So the more you increase that, the more you pay, or the number of orders you have. Again, it's a different model, but it translates into how much are you going to pay each month, and is it worth it?
Exactly. I have a question from Crystal. Crystal says, please take talk about when a seller has the buy box all of the time. It sometimes seems that when I change my price by just a few cents, I get a sale right after that. Is it possible to set Seller Snap to just change my prices by a few cents randomly a few times a day while not competing with I guess, with other ASINs?
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Is the question just changing price gets you a sale even without getting the buy box? Is that the intention?
Crystal, can you clarify that a little bit for Eli?
Or winning the buy box, like dropping a few cents below the price to win the buy box?
Let's see what she writes. Let me read it again. Maybe if we could see. Please talk about when a seller has the buy box all of the time. It sometimes seems that when I change my price by just a few cents, I don't know, are you using a repricer, Crystal, when you're doing this, or are you just going in and manually changing it by a few cents? I guess that would be the first question. I get a sale right after that. Is it possible to set Seller Snap to just change my prices by a few cents randomly a few times a day while not competing with other ASIN?
No, that option doesn't exist. That option doesn't exist. But again, assuming that you're, oh, here we go. Let's see if I understand.
She put, no, I already have the buy box manual change.
Ah, so you mean you have the buy box, but just making a change gets you a sale. Interesting. I don't know. Do you have competition for the buy box, or is it your own label? Are there other sellers that win the buy box every now and then? No competition, I assume. Well, that I don't know in that case. First of all, as I said, no bundles. As I said, no competition is not my biggest area of expertise. It's more in the private label, white label area. It's interesting. You're winning the Bibles all the time. Possibly, if you're dropping a few cents, if it's a bundle, maybe that's just enough difference compared to the non-bundled products to justify a purchase from a buyer. So you're decreasing price. You're saying it's not a price change. You're dropping the price by a little bit, or changing, even going up, gets you a sale. Because that wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. I wouldn't know.
I guess my question I would ask for Crystal, since I sell private label, is if you don't have competition and you have the buy box, how are you losing it?
Buy box can become suppressed, obviously, if you go too high.
It could come suppressed if Amazon thinks that you're pricing it over market value.
Right.
But you shouldn't have to change it by a few cents if you have the buy box and it's within the suggested retail of the product.
Yeah. No, but you, John, as a seller of private label, so you don't have to worry about the buy box. But I'm sure there is this price. So there is always a price point where if you go too high, no one's going to buy it, and you want to find that balance. So again, I don't know if that's what she's referring to, but you would find that price where, okay, you're not selling, you drop a little bit, and there is where you find that sweet spot where people start buying it.
Yeah, and Amazon does like to control private label sellers as well, because Amazon wants to dictate to you how high you can raise it, and if you do get too high, without notice, they'll just suppress the buy box until, right. And when they suppress it, it takes a while before you can get it back. Even if you lower the price, it doesn't mean you're going to get that buy box right back. Amazon, kind of penalizes you.
Right. Often I raise the price and get an immediate sale. Well, again, first of all, there's no arguing with results.
Exactly.
That's if it works, it works. But so no, SellerSnap doesn't have automation for that, and I can't explain it. I wouldn't know why this happens.
But was this a private label product or just a product that she has that there's no competition with? Because she's doing bundles. No one else is getting on these bundles, I guess.
Yeah, it was the same thing, a bundle. So it doesn't have competition on the buy box, but still, if you raise the price, you get a sale. I wouldn't know why that would happen, but
I think if you're doing bundles and you're getting, and you're getting sales and you're able to raise it and do it, I would just continue to be careful with doing that and don't go up so much. But kudos to you that you have a bundle out there that nobody has found yet.
Yeah.
Because even bundles, there's more and more people jumping on bundles now. They're finding ways to do it. The one way to get away from that is to put a private label piece in your bundle that they can't get unless they have that. And it could be a marketing material piece, like you could have something that you private labeled, and it could be something that talks about different ways to use that product that actually has your brand on it. And there's no way for them to get that. So
that is, by the way, this exact kind of scenario is where what I mentioned before in terms of repricing is to track one or more related products is a good solution. Because again, you're a bundle, like you said, John, you're adding just your own little private label thing in it, but it's still linked to the price of that standalone item or whatever it is. So if that goes, if you can sell something, your reference sells for $20 and you can sell yours for $21, that's fine. But if that reference now drops to $15 and you're at $21, probably you're not going to sell it because there's no, the value changes or the difference in value changes. So I think that is one of the instances where it makes sense to at least have an anchor to one or more other products where it keeps, automatically keeps you in the range you have to be.
Yeah, and I see what she said, that she wished she could automate it to change the price by a few cents a few times a day. And I get why she wants to do that because, time is, valuable. And if you can have something automatically set that, it allows you to go on to something else and not worry.
We have that. So we have the option to do that, just to set it not randomly, but to say, okay, every X hours increase price and then decrease price by a few cents. It's not for me to say. I wouldn't, that's not why people use SellerSnap, because that's like, to use a very kind of insignificant feature of a bigger whole of repricing capabilities just to do this. Yeah, I'm sure you could find though, I'm pretty sure Channel Max, which is just like maybe $40 a month, has the option to set a basic rule just on time. So to say, okay, every 3 hours go up 2 cents, and then every next 3 hours go down a couple of cents. If that's what you're looking for, there's probably, I'm pretty sure there's a few very basic reprices that can do that. I've lost.
Any more questions, guys? Yeah, I mute myself. When you're talking, I mute myself so I can stay away from it.
Okay.
Any more questions you guys have? I've got one last one, and then if you don't have any more, we're just going to let Eli go. All right, so last one is, I understand that you provide analytics and intel. How do you know if your repricer is good or not?
Wow, that is for us as a solution provider, and I think this is interesting to you as well. You're going to spend money on something. How do you know that it is? How do you quantify the value that it provides? And for repricing, it's very difficult because people start using us, and there's a 15-day free trial, and we tell this to potential customers. Let's say your sales goes up by $5,000. There's so many factors that go into this. Maybe you've had a lucky break on a very high, very fast moving item where a big competitor is out of stock. Maybe you did some good sourcing and you got some good strong products in there. Just a million different things that have dramatic effects on the results. So we claim a repricer is a must, but it doesn't replace just managing good business. So that's like that's me saying what the challenge is, but the way we try to handle this is by giving very good analytics and the option to drill down into specific listings and look for differences, and in this way try to filter out other factors that may affect your results. So kind of filter out inventory related issues, filter out competition related issues. It's still always a challenge. But that's where you need very good analytics, to very good numbers, very good data to try and make sense of it all.
Yeah, I agree. It's in the data. And the other thing, and I've been saying this for years and years now, that, and guys, you need to know whether you use a repricer or not. It's you make your money in how you buy, not sell. You buy it right, you'll make money.
You can make more money if you sell it right as well. But yeah, if you buy it right, you can, yeah.
But if you buy it right, it gives you the flexibility to make more money too, because you've got more room and margin to be able to work with things.
Definitely, no, definitely. That's a very clear, and that's where sellers, and I can say that's where our customers, the ones that are very successful, are exactly as you said, John, are the ones that have this room to maneuver, the room to move. Where they're not just sitting at their bare minimum and trying to compete at that level. That's very difficult to make money on that. So only when you have some room where you can be competitive can you really get profit.
And the other thing that you'll find out is you don't always have to be the lowest price. I mean, I've seen it where Amazon had something and I sold it $4 more, and I don't know why, but they bought mine. And Amazon was in stock. So you may, at some point in time, if you've been doing this long enough, you're going to build a customer following as well, where the trust value is there. And it doesn't matter if Amazon has it or not. They know you, they trust you, and they know the products that you sell, and they're willing to pay a little bit more because that trust value is there. And to a lot of people, the trust value has value to them as far as them willing to pay a little bit more.
No, definitely, I agree, and I think it's what I said. It's having the right tools are a must, but they're not going to make you successful. And in the end, it's running a good business, and you know, one of the things you mentioned is creating trust and just keeping your seller ratings very high and buying right and everything. In the end, it's everything together, not just one thing.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming up on the hour, so Eli, it's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for coming. And guys, if you don't realize this, Eli is coming from us all the way from Israel. And I decided to do this show today, even though, you know what, we look at life in general, and a lot of times we take it for granted. And the thing that happened with Kobe, yes, Kobe is a superstar, and he's known worldwide, but it shouldn't just be about Kobe and his incident, and I'm very sad for him and his family and everything they're going through, but it kind of lets us reflect on ourselves as well. And don't ever let any moment pass you by, because you never know when you're going to get that and when you're going to lose it. So I have to tell you guys to live for every moment. And if you're in this business or you want to do this business, go after it and live your dreams, because you just don't know what's going to happen from day to day. And I would want to know that if I was going out, that I went out with my legacy and I was able to help people as much as I could while I was here, and did my time the way I'm supposed to, the way, you know, we're all here to do, and help one another. So I just wanted to put that out there, you know, condolences to his family and everything that he's going through as well. And that it is a very, very big wake-up call that I think a lot of us take it for granted and don't realize that when we wake up every morning, we should be counting our blessings and giving praise to God, because without him, none of this is possible. So again, guys, I wish you all well. God bless you all. Thank you, Eli, for being here. It's a pleasure having you on my show. Guys, until next time, Monday when I do my next show, take care. We'll talk to you soon, and God bless.
Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed.